Well, following this, we'll now transition to our next vertical, in this case, focus now on new business models. The next keynote, we will be talking about scaling innovation in neuro-longevity and mental well-being. And it will be led by Mr. Marco Mohwinckel from TechTour. Marco is a pharma, biotech, medtech, health tech executive advisor, investor, and president of the TechTour Mental and Brain Health Program. So without further ado, Mr. Mohwinckel, whenever you want, the floor is yours. And here you get the clicker if you need, yeah.
Better now? Yeah. Can you hear me now? Great, okay. Yes, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this forum. It's a pleasure to be here. Congrats on the great venue and also, the very professional production. I really enjoy being being here with you in presence. I was here last year, but I was on video, and it's much better to be in person. I have the distinguished pleasure of stimulating, let's say, your thinking before we have a deeper dive in a panel discussion. I come from pharma, from biotech, from medtech, from the business world. I'm not an academic or a researcher, but I have spent all my life in highly regulated and highly evidence-based industries and situations. So I really appreciate the importance of what has been discussed just now with regards to the need for new technologies, new solutions that are also evidence-based, and that is part of the discussion we will have later with the panel. One thing I wanted, if there's one thing that I would like you to take away from my keynote, is that stimulating innovation is great. And we need to invest more in early stage innovation, in research, in startups, in entrepreneurship, but we also need to focus on scaling what works. I think we are very good at putting money just to kickstart things, but we're not that good in taking what works and scaling it to achieve the highest and biggest possible impact. And of course, we have the tools now, but there is a growing need, of course, and we have the tools to do that. So I would like to just call your attention to the fact that we do need to move away from treating into prevention, into personalization, into prediction, and we have the tools to do that. We have data, we have AI and technologies for that purpose. The order is quite tall. I think we have the tools, but we have on both ends. I would like to use the expression and this graphical depiction that we're burning the candles on both ends. So on one hand, we have a increasing prevalence and incidence of early in the youth of mental health conditions, eating disorders, anxiety, that manifest very early in their lives for all sorts of reasons. Economic insecurity, inequality, insecurity and poor social cohesion, environmental and lifestyle factors, they all contribute to our youth being more exposed. And also, I would argue, on a positive side, less stigma. So we are seeing more mental health issues being manifested in the youth and in the adolescents. On the other hand, the demographic trends are pointing us to a much greater burden of neurodegenerative conditions. We live longer, but the aim cannot and should not be only to live longer, but should be to live healthier and expanding the health span and not only the lifespan. And neuro-longevity, which is the term we use for that purpose, becomes very, very important for that. So we need to really tackle the problem. I don't like to use the word burden. I like to think about this as an opportunity for us. We have experts that we have consulted across Europe and in the US. I spend a lot of my time between the US and Europe. And as I said before, we have this really big imperative to move to preventing, personalizing, and predicting. That's the only way we can tackle the problem before. There's no way we can only focus on treatment. It's just too costly. The healthcare systems cannot afford it. But predicting, preventing, and personalizing requires a greater emphasis on technology, for sure, lifestyle changes, and things that are, of course, very easy to talk about, but very difficult to implement. We have great and increasing amount of data and technologies that can allow us to collect this data, to identify patients or people that are suffering from mental health conditions. This data sits in silos, oftentimes, needs to be integrated, and that is the real big challenge that we face today. But we have the tools, as I said, we just need to act. I wear several hats. In this particular instance, I represent TechTour. I am the president of the TechTour mission, one of the TechTour missions, which is a mission focused on neuro-longevity and mental well-being. TechTour is an organization that has been around for 25 years, and all they do and have been doing very successfully for the last 25 years is organizing investment programs, events that bring together entrepreneurs, companies, startups, scale-ups with investors. And by doing those events that are highly curated, they have been able to facilitate across different verticals a lot of investments into entrepreneurship in Europe in particular. So some numbers here, 34 billion have been actually raised by companies that are alumni of TechTour events. TechTour does 25 events per year and screens over 1,000 companies. Some of the organizers of this event have had the pleasure of attending a couple of these events recently, and they work on different verticals, not only on mental health, but I have spearheaded and applied this model to mental and brain health. And we had run 2 successful investor meetings in the last 2 years, and we will continue to do this over the next few years. And hopefully we can also partner and deepen our collaboration with Wmif. I think collaboration is key. I don't think anyone can solve this problem on their own. I really believe that we should work together as ecosystems. Coming back to my main point at the beginning of the session, that scaling is the challenge. Scaling can only be achieved if different stakeholders come together, work together in a new collaborative model. I don't think it's governments pushing this down. I don't think it's only entrepreneurs. I don't think it's investors. I don't think it's corporations on their own. Everybody has their own agenda. And that is fine and great things can come out of individual agendas. But if we do want to tackle these societal and economic challenges, we need to adopt a new collaborative model. And our ambition is to identify bottom-up clusters of innovators, like the WeMind Forum, like the WeMind cluster here in Barcelona, and in different parts of Europe. We have already activated and engaged with other clusters of innovators that have representation from providers, from investors, from academics and researchers. And we want to bring these clusters into a network. We want to have hubs that are speaking to each other, and we want to have companies that are engaged. So as I said, different stakeholders need to come together in a way that is more structured. We are envisaging a collaboration that includes the best and the brightest companies in Europe coming from anywhere, and put them into a collaborative model and plugging them into different ecosystems across Europe. I really want to stress this because we will continue to facilitate investment in early stage companies, but we must be better at identifying and picking the winners. There are great companies out there across Europe in the mental and health tech space. We have the focus on technology, of course, and we can talk about it later in the panel. But there are great companies out there that are really struggling in moving from their ecosystem into a different ecosystem. So they are really struggling going from Germany to France or to the UK or vice versa, or to Spain. Why is that? There is obviously a school of thought that says, it's not invented here, we have to nurture homegrown innovation, and that is absolutely acceptable and fine. But as I said, if something works, let's understand why it works, and let's break down the barriers to taking this innovation from one country to another country. Because if we don't do that in Europe, which is my focus, what happens, and has already happened and will continue to happen, is we'll lose these great talents, these great companies to the US or other regions. And it's a matter of sovereignty, in my view. It's a matter of independence, and it's a matter of creating and innovating and stimulating growth in Europe. And there's a great amount of companies that can do really well, but they're just not seeing their adoption of their technologies fast enough in different countries. Regulatory barriers, reimbursement barriers, clinical adoption barriers. And how can we address these barriers? We need to identify clusters and putting these people together that are willing to work and able to adopt innovation faster. And it is a bottom-up approach. It cannot be stimulated top-down by governments, in my view. So if you ask any entrepreneur that has, and I've been one myself, if you ask them what they really need to scale, they will tell you three things. I need more money, I need more customers, which is also more money, and I need the right capabilities and talents. Okay, so those are the three priorities for entrepreneurs. They will always tell you the same thing in different variations, but the essence is money, customers, and people. So there's too many innovations, too many fragmented ecosystems. So our ambition here is to identify value chains, identify clusters, identify ecosystems that can work with one another, and make sure that we're building the bridges across different European hubs. Better, faster, further. We want to focus on deployment and clinical adoption, or adoption in general. Adoption is where things break down. I think we talked about, I've heard the previous panel, a lot of the emphasis is on evidence. I think I am a big believer in evidence as being an important lever for adoption, but it sometimes stands in the way of adoption. And we need to, I think some of the speakers made that point as well. You need to find the right risk-benefit profile. You need to emphasize evidence only and only if there is a risk and if you're making claims that are unsubstantiated. But oftentimes the risk-benefit doesn't justify the need for running extensive clinical trials. Sometimes, implementation studies or implementation science or observational studies or real-world studies are really the way forward for adoption and should be encouraged. What I'm talking about here is not another accelerator. I'm not talking about another consortium. It's a new model, a new collaborative model. I think we have sufficiently engaged clusters, like the one here in Catalonia, in other parts. We're talking to Finland, we're talking to Germany, in the region of Rhine, in the Ruhrgebiet. We're talking to the ecosystem in the UK, where there are already stakeholders that are all trying to bring together and network these stakeholders. And we need to then try to find ways of creating bridges between these different ecosystems and identify innovation that comes from these ecosystems, but also find ways of implementing innovation coming from other systems into those clusters. So let me just leave you with a departing thought. Neuro-longevity and mental well-being is the most important societal challenge as far as I'm concerned. I'm fully dedicated to trying to find ways of scaling innovation through collaborative models, new collaborative models. We have the tools, we have the data, increasing amount of data, we have the tools to do better. It all starts with a better understanding and characterization of the problem. We need to identify what do we want to focus on. This is something that I would like to discuss with the panelists as well. We tend to admire and contemplate the problem too much. I also have a bias to action. I think we need to really identify the priorities. And when we talk about mental health and neuro-longevity, one of the biggest challenges that we have is that these are highly, let's say, highly heterogeneous and highly comorbid conditions. Any clinician in the room will tell you that this diagnosing and treating this condition is not easy because of that comorbidity, mental comorbidity and mental and physical comorbidities. So we end up misdiagnosing, mistreating or undertreating, but we do need to, and we have also on the other hand, a system resource failure. We don't have enough clinicians, we don't have enough psychologists or psychotherapists. So technology must be part of the equation, but we need to adopt it in the best possible way.